Tom Goodhead, a barrister for the Indigenous Krenak peoples in Brazil, joins us now live. Tom, thank you for coming on News Breakfast.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, first of all, can you take us through just what sort of an environmental disaster this was and what impact it has had on the Krenak peoples?
Yeah, so this was a collapse of a tailings dam on the 5th of November 2015 near a city called Mariana in Minas Gerais in Brazil, a state which is quite literally a state of mines. And this was Brazil's worst ever environmental disaster, where about 40 million cube toxic tailings ended up travelling 600 kilometres down the river called the Rio Doce, the Sweet River. And the Krenak people, their traditional lands are alongside the river. They know the river as a watu. It had an extraordinary religious, spiritual and cultural meaning in their daily practices and their daily way of life. And unfortunately, this is now a dead river.
And I think that some people described this sludge as having the consistency of melted chocolate. Just what sort of impact has that had on the wider economy for these people?
So it's been utterly devastating. The tailings contained, highly toxic heavy metals. There've been tailings being found in carcasses of whales and dolphins 9 years on. It's made fishing extraordinarily unsafe, if not impossible, along the river. The Krenak people, for example, had to change their diet from what was a diet which was fished from the river or cattle that they raised. Their land now has tailings on it. The river is completely inaccessible to them in order for them to access their daily normal food sources. They've turned to eating processed food, so there have been extremely terrible impacts on their health, and of over 1 million people that this has impacted in Brazil.
Just huge. Look, some of your clients and, of course, your legal team are in Australia ahead of this court case to lobby local MPs and also environmental groups. What are you actually hoping to achieve?
So they're hoping to just draw attention to this. This happened nearly 9 years ago, of course, in Brazil, which is a very long way away. And this trial is starting on October the 21st. But they're really trying to advocate for BHP to do the right thing. We learnt this morning that the CEO of BHP, Mike Henry, together with Caroline Cox, their general counsel, are in Brazil at the moment. In fact, they're in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, meeting with the president of the Brazilian Supreme Court, meeting with the Attorney General of Brazil. And my client's concern is that they're spending their time negotiating in relation to this collapse and the impacts of it with the Brazilian government, rather than meeting with them, the victims themselves, and addressing their concerns. Well, so what message do you want this court case to send to mining giants like BHP? So it's one of accountability. Obviously, the sums that are being discussed are huge. BHP has a liability to the Brazilian government of potentially 30 billion Australian dollars or thereabouts. You've heard that 70 plus could be claimed in the English claim. But obviously, the money and the financial recompense and the attempts to remediate the environment are important. But the single most important word is accountability. You have to make mining giants like BHP. They hold a social license to mine, but when they break that, when they violate it with something like the collapse of the Fundão Dam, ultimately they have to be held to account, and that's what the aim of this case in England proceeding in 2 weeks is. And $70 billion is an absolutely astronomical amount. When is this court case being heard? Where? And how soon might it be before any of these victims get any of this money? Yeah, so the trial is starting on the 21st of October, and if this case doesn't settle through resolution, which is of course what the clients want, they shouldn't have to be spending fortunes having to litigate nearly 9 years on. If there isn't a settlement which is reached with BHP, which is to the acceptability of the clients that I represent, this case could proceed for another 3 to 4 years potentially in the English courts. Tom Goodhead, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.